Thank you guys, already a fantastic crowd. I thought I was going to have to give you that boost. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being an awesome audience. I'm going to need more of this energy from you guys throughout the game show this evening. Before we start, I'm going to invite our judge onto the stage, and that is the awesome advocate Ben Winks. Woo! So this is Rate the Hate, and if you've been here over the last year or two, you should be familiar with the game. It is a game around rating the hate. And what we do this evening, and what we're going to be doing, is having a conversation, light-hearted conversation, as William said, around an important, serious issue, and that is the issue of hate speech. Oftentimes, people throw the words hate speech around. It's so easy to categorize things as hate speech just because you don't like them, or because they make you uncomfortable, or you think they sound hateful. But is that enough? Is that what constitutes hate speech? I've got awesome panelists here this evening who are going to put that to the test, and we have our fantastic judge who's going to be rating what exactly is the hate and whether this is hate speech. Before I introduce the scenarios that we're going to be having, we've got our teams here this evening, and I've heard that they've already decided on the names. And I heard the names. I don't know, guys. You guys are going to help me decide whether these are good names. Let's start with the team on my left, made up of the awesome Ray White. And we've got the legal eagle who is in the middle, and that is Neo Murane. And the lovely, our very own journalist in this group as well, from the Mail and Guardian, Ati Bana. So you guys have already decided on a name. I think your guys' name is the one where I was like, who's going to do the, it's you, Rago Raisins.
All righty then, the media moguls, come on.
Listen, I'm not so sure about that. And then our team on the right, our lovely ladies and gentlemen. On my right, we've got Kat Kgothatso. She's joined by our fantastic legal eagle on this team this evening, and his name is DJ Van Wyk. DJ Van Wyk. And the third member of the team is the lovely lady in pink, Neria Shakotsa. Yeah, it's clear to tell these people are journalists. None of them are standing up to bow. They're not even, you know. What's your guys' team name?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are the cross-examiners.
Woo! You guys are way too nice. All right, so this evening, what we're going to be doing over the next couple of hours or hour or so is that we're going to be having 3 scenarios. And the teams are going to be given 10 minutes each to go into their corners and to consider the scenarios and to rate whether they are hate speech. If they are hate, it's a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, 0 being no hate at all, and 10 being absolute hate, screaming hate speech. What they have are legal eagles, legal experts who are going to be helping them figure out whether the scenarios are hate speech or not. They will then come back after 10 minutes and they will present. Now, there are rules, but I'll introduce those rules once you come back. So let's afford the teams an opportunity to go into their corners and to start rating the hate, and they will come back and join us in a bit. Let's put our hands together. Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
What did they say? Legal eagles and? What did they say? Legal media moguls and? Okay, cool. All right, am I audible? Can you guys hear me? Okay, so what we're going to be doing as the audience and as we wait for the teams to come back is we are also going to be learning a bit about hate speech. We are going to be having a conversation around what exactly constitutes hate speech, but also I'd like some examples from our expert here this evening who's going to help us through some of the cases we've seen recently around hate speech to help us understand it more. So, Ben, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for your time. I think let's just start with what exactly is hate speech? We hear it so much, we throw it around. Is hate speech anything that sounds hateful or hurtful?
Simple as saying, I hate you, which might be the first example that would come to mind. The thing that distinguishes hate speech from any other kind of offensive speech where you could, for example, defame someone or injure their dignity by body shaming them or something like that, or calling them a crook or whatever, may very well hurt their feelings. But the thing that makes hate speech special is that it degrades a person or demeans a person based on their membership of a group. So in some countries, hate speech is referred to as group defamation or group libel, and that's the unique thing about hate speech, is that group element. That means that when you express yourself in a particular way, you may be directing it at one individual, but the speech strikes at the dignity and the equal worth of an entire group. And that's what makes it different, that's what makes it particularly socially poisonous, and that's why we have special legislation designed to address it.
Yeah. And is there a spectrum? Are there, phrases that people have said that are more hateful than others? And could you say, oh, this is all hate speech, but this is more hate speech than that?
Yeah, that's a difficult question that the teams are going to have a lot of trouble with. Is at some point a judge or an editor or whoever has to decide whether something is hate speech or not will have to draw a line and say this is on the wrong side of the line, this is hate speech. And then how severe it is, how much it injures people's dignity, how close it is to some kind of ground of justification, that would all influence things like remedy. You know, how serious is the infringement of people's dignity and equality? And then you could be ordered to, so if this went to court, we have special equality courts that deal with hate speech. If it's especially severe, you could be ordered to do 50 hours of community service instead of 5 hours, or pay a fine to a tolerance promoting organization of $1 million instead of 10,000, or that kind of thing. So that's where the aggravation or mitigation comes in, is really in the remedy. But a court does have to decide either this is hate speech or it isn't. And the criteria that it has to use to determine that are, firstly, it needs to be based on prohibited grounds, the speech. The term used is prohibited grounds, and that's race, sex, sexual orientation, disability, HIV status, age, and there could be other grounds that haven't been explicitly mentioned, but if there is a history of systemic discrimination based on that ground, then that could also be taken into account to determine hate speech. So, for example, in our Equality Act, nationality or refugee status or migrant status is not listed. So, on the face of it, it's not hate speech if you discriminate in your language against people based on their national origin, refugee status or migrant status. Sure. But if you were to show the court that there is a systemic discrimination against people from these groups, then you could still establish that it's hate speech. Okay. So that's the first element, is it has to be based on prohibited grounds. The second is that it must either incite harm or be harmful, the meaning, so that the court tries to determine objectively what is the meaning of the speech. And either it must incite harm or be harmful in and of itself. And there are three ways harm can manifest. One is that it causes members of the speaker's in-group to shun or degrade or discriminate against members of the so-called out-group. Or those from the out-group who hear it will feel dehumanized and degraded and demeaned. That's the second kind of harm. And the third is the harm to the social project of nation building, reconciliation, social cohesion. So any one of those forms of harm would suffice. And then the next element, the final one, is that it must promote or propagate hatred. So it needs to be quite serious. It can't just be a light dislike of a certain group's foibles or stereotypes or whatever. It actually needs to encourage the listener to detest this group, and it must vilify them. So there is a sort of gravity threshold.
Okay. And have we seen people being prosecuted and spend some time in jail even, imprisoned for hate speech?
So at the moment, hate speech is purely a civil wrong. Means you can be ordered to apologize. An interdict can prevent you from repeating the same statements. You could pay damages, maybe even do community service. There is a new Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Act that's been passed, but it's not yet in force. So from the date that it comes into force, which may be next year sometime, we don't know, then anybody who speaks in a manner that contravenes those elements I've spoken about from that date onwards would also face a criminal charge of hate speech.
Okay.
It will likely be constitutionally challenged because it's somewhat excessive to criminalize speech when it's already the subject of a civil wrong, but that's a discussion for another day. There are crimes that coincide with hate speech, so incitement to violence. It may very well be based on a prohibited ground, but incitement to violence is a crime on its own. Crimen injuria, an old Roman Dutch term for invading or infringing someone's dignity or privacy in a very serious way, is also a crime. So one of the famous cases we have is that of a woman called Vicky Momberg, who directed the K-word at a black police officer 46 times and was found to have committed hate speech in the Equality Court and subjected to various remedies there, but also was convicted of crimen injuria in the criminal court for the same thing, and I think was given a suspended sentence of 2 years in prison. So that's the kind of case where you could see people behind bars. Generally, for speech, it's, criminalizing speech can be a very dangerous exercise. It's used to criminalize journalism. It's used to criminalize academia in many countries around the world. So we have to be very careful with it. And it's only where you're actually inciting violence or actually degrading a particular individual in an appalling manner that you would really find it appropriate to have criminal sanctions.
I want to open up to our audience. If any of you have questions or any comments, I'm taking hands, and Ben is here to help answer all your questions. If you've got a comment to make, we would appreciate that. Sure. The lady there. Go ahead. Are we going to, okay, here's a mic.
Thank you both so much. So, Ben, in response to the question earlier, you mentioned kind of the aggravating and mitigating factors. I was wondering whether you've seen a trend in terms of whether speech is directed at identifiable individuals versus being targeted at kind of a group, sort of a homogenous group, I suppose, in terms of whether or not the speech has been treated as more or less severe in either of those circumstances. And then the second question that I had was just about your experience and some of the kind of practicalities when you've got hate speech that appears on a social media platform, and in terms of kind of that process of building the case and what you need to present to the court and engaging with the platforms if that's necessary.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Avani. The first question, I haven't seen a trend. It's often the case in our hate speech matters where either you have an individual complainant who's been racially abused or abused with anti-queer hate speech by another person. There's this interpersonal hate speech. And there you would find damages being awarded to that individual, usually in the region of up to 50,000 rand. Where you have public hate speech that's not directed at anyone in particular, like Penny Sparrow comparing black people to primates, there she was ordered to pay 150,000 rand to the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. In a case where I acted, where businessman had used the K word on several occasions, even though that was in bilateral conversations with his financial advisor, we got an award that he must pay 500,000 rand to the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. So there isn't a particular trend. It's another interesting case is when Julius Malema was found guilty of anti-women hate speech for propagating rape myths about Jacob Zuma's rape accuser. She hadn't complained, so she wasn't awarded any damages. But because his statements were made in a public setting and propagated rape myths in a country racked by gender-based violence, the court ordered him to pay 50,000 rand to people opposed to women abuse. Now, I'm involved in a case now acting for a woman named Minnie Dlamini, who has been degraded many times over the years on a podcast called Podcast and Chill with Mac G, which is, you know, a kind of misogyny factory online. So she has been personally degraded by name, but also every time they've degraded her, they've done so in language that strikes at the dignity and the equal worth of all women in South Africa. So what is being sought is an award of damages to her of a relatively nominal amount, but then a substantial amount of damages to be paid to Women for Change. So that would be the first case where you see the different types of damages, the one kind of to repair the damage done to the individual, and the other one to serve that kind of public restorative and deterrent kind of purpose. Then the question of social media platforms. It's, I mean, we had Penny Sparrow, then we had Adam Katsavelos. We now, there's, in fact, tomorrow morning I'm going to be in urgent court bringing a case against a social media user who has 600,000 followers on Facebook, 1.3 million followers on TikTok, and published the most heinous anti-queer hate speech over the course of a week. And there, what hasn't happened before is getting an urgent remedy to get someone to put a stop to it. So in the case of anti-queer hate speech, we've had the famous Kwelane case. That took 13 years to come to an order, a final order. He died before the order was given. So the apology was never actually made. In the case of online hate speech against the Chinese community, where I acted for the Chinese Association, it took us 5 years to get an order. So sometimes you do, because social media trends so quickly and goes viral and spreads like wildfire, sometimes I think we need to make our equality courts more responsive to urgent applications, and they're not actually institutionally geared for it, which is one of the problems we've had over the last few days in trying to get this matter heard. But after tomorrow morning, I'll let you know if it works. Yeah.
Sure, go ahead, William.
So I've got a friend who's actually watching online, and they complained that they couldn't submit questions, but luckily they know me. So they said, William, please ask if racism is always hate speech. The K word seems obvious because it's, I presume they mean imbued with something beyond racism, right? So that's, but is racism always, what about other examples I think they mean, and what about something then like misogyny? Is that then going to be, because it's on the basis of sex, is that always then going to necessarily be hate speech? And if
Yeah.
not, what is the distinguishing criteria? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a very difficult question because, again, there's that how quantitatively you must be encouraging hatred against that group. So whether you're speaking to an audience of 1, or you're speaking to an audience of 50, or speaking online to millions, what needs to be there is this element of promote and propagate hatred. The element of harm is very easy to establish. If you call a woman the B word, you call a gay man the M word, you call a black person the K word, that is going to be harmful in the sense envisaged by the law. But is it promoting and propagating hatred? The context will dictate whether you are encouraging the listeners to share in your bigotry, to feel more comfortable and emboldened in discriminating against this group. If that's the case, then it promotes and propagates hatred. If it doesn't, so if, for example, you're a preacher in a church and you read certain passages from Leviticus, if you're not, there are circumstances where you could be trying to legitimize discrimination and violence against queer people. But there might be circumstances where you're just inviting a critical analysis of this text and not actually trying to persuade your audience to take a particular view. Now, if you're trying to reach into people's minds and get them to treat people differently, that then becomes promoting and propagating hatred. So if you call, the famous examples we have online of sexist hate speech is calling female journalists the B word because you don't like the way they report. It is, there is a context of demeaning women journalists as women. Because they're women, they face rape threats and death threats that male journalists don't. But on its own, that might not be enough. You have to be actually inviting your audience to discriminate more broadly against women, to mistreat women more broadly, which it can be in the context, but it won't always be. In Julius Malema's case with the propagating rape myths, it was deemed harassment and hate speech against women because he had told his audience, he had propagated to his audience that that woman, being the complainant, was not raped because she stayed the night, she asked for taxi money, and she had breakfast. And he said, you don't do that with someone who raped you. Now, because that is encouraging the normalization of rape myths in society, in fact, trying to mold people's minds into legitimizing rape myths, that then was found to be hate speech, and I think quite rightly so.
All right, are we taking any more? We've got a hand here.
I have a question. So earlier this year, the Constitutional Court refused AfriForum's leave for appeal in the Kill the Boer case because it had no prospects of success.
Yeah.
Just want to ask, do you think the Constitutional Court should have granted the leave to appeal? And are there any potential arguments that AfriForum could have made to potentially have the CC grant the judgment in their favor, considering the history of the song?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a very good question. It's obviously one of the most hotly debated hate speech issues we've had is the Shoot the Boer case. And AfriForum, firstly, they didn't conduct their case particularly well. So one of the reasons they lost was because the EFF called an expert witness in linguistics and struggle songs, and the EFF never called a counter-expert on linguistics and struggle songs, or the meaning of song in politics or culture or whatever. So her evidence was unchallenged, and she wasn't very effectively cross-examined. So the trial record is very much against AfriForum, and it's very difficult to fix a broken case on appeal. So they were always going to lose, I think, because of the way the trial was constructed and conducted. However, I do think the Supreme Court of Appeal was wrong on one aspect. So there were 7 occasions that were complained about of where the song was sung, or variations of the song. 6 of them were political rallies in stadiums and places like that. And the Supreme Court of Appeal was, quite firm that it's clear the audience knows that he's not to be taken literally. He's agitating about racial justice and land justice. He's not literally saying kill anybody, and he's not literally referring to white Afrikaners when he says poor, because of the history and the context. Essentially saying you would be unreasonable to think that his audience is going to take it literally. But the 7th occasion is different, and the Supreme Court of Appeal kind of glossed over it. Now, that was where a young farm manager had been killed in a town called Senekal, and those accused of murdering him appeared in court for a bail application, and the certain members of the community, the farming community, came and attended. Most of them happened to be white Afrikaners. Some of them happened to be carrying white supremacist symbols. The EFF reacted very angrily to that and said, you can't come here with your white supremacy. We're going to confront you at the next court appearance. And they did that. And whether or not some of those members of the grieving community were white supremacists or not, for the EFF and Julius Malema personally to go there and to say to a grieving community and spit in their face the words, kill the Boer, in those circumstances where his own family members are there, I think is different substantively. You're not then punching up against power. You're not punching up against white supremacy. You're punching down on a grieving community, a community that rightly or wrongly may feel targeted. You're not in a political theater, not in a rally, in a stadium with your own supporters. You are telling a community that they don't deserve equal worth, and that's very different. And saying essentially that farmer deserved to die. So the SCA their reasoning was very unsatisfactory on the 7th incident. So on that basis, I think the Constitutional Court should have granted leave to appeal on that one issue, because that's the nuance that should have been explored in a case like that, which would help people to understand the contours of hate speech better, but that was a missed opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we are back. Woo! Our teams are back, and we're coming to you live from the People's Theatre in Braamfontein. You guys are an awesome audience. Thank you so much. All right, the teams are back, and we are going to be rating the hate with them. I see some of them were sweating. Ray, was it a difficult time in there?
Oh, it was very difficult.
Okay.
It was almost not. It actually was quite easy. Because we've got a legal mind here, so we
Yes,
fine.
we've got a sharp one here. And this side, Neria, are you okay?
We are ready.
Ready?
We are really ready.
Okay, all right.
Cross-examine us.
I really yeah, that's we've got the cross-examiners. Yeah, and the media moguls. I see you guys looking like the money. All right, so this is how we're going to work. The teams are going to be rating 3 scenarios, which I will read, and they will have to rate them on a scale of 10 or 0 to 10, 0 being no hate at all, and 10 being absolute hate. And the catch is you guys only have 2 minutes per scenario to explain why you have rated it as you have. If you go beyond 2 minutes, then I will penalize you guys, and you will lose. Wah, wah, wah. Okay, so are you guys ready? Yes. Okay, cool. So let's start with our first scenario. I'm going to be reading it, and so how we're going to work is at the end of each scenario, our fantastic expert this evening, our advocate Ben, lawyer Ben, is going to be then rating, or he's going to be judging your guys' decisions and your scores, and ultimately we will then have a winner. So the stakes are high, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys had your thinking caps on. I believe in you guys. I know you guys did the things. I trust you guys. You guys are going to win this. All right, let's start with scenario number 1. In a standing conflict, a prominent politician, Mr. S. Ushi, from the party Poultry the Alliance, became angry during a television interview and made the following comments. Albertus is just an irritating cockroach that now I must deal with publicly. And I will call you. I will call all the press. And I will begin to deal with this and show you that Albertus, whatever he criticizes, he is. Albertus is a criminal. And I am going to show South Africans the crimes that he is involved in. He has been involved in, and the crimes that he is involved in, he has been involved in, and I'm going to tell South Africans why I truly, the real truth, why I left the FFE. Okay. Because of this cockroach. Mr. Ushi went on. So I'm going to deal with this cockroach. We have stood back, but now it is over. He said that he would set up our government and then deal with this cockroach. Poor Albertus. So let's start with our media moguls. What did you guys rate this and why? But before you do that, I want to time you. Because I know, Ray, I know with you, man, we can go
Let's
on.
have a discussion, guys.
So the clock starts when I find my timer. That's when the clock starts. Go ahead, Ray. I'll just keep an eye on the clock.
Right. We gave him, it's a 0. 0 out of 10. No hate speech there. Hurtful, not harmful. Defamation mostly. One person, no group. And tag your it.
All right. So the other thing to consider here is that there isn't particularly context for the word cockroach, in that it's not particularly, there's no historical context in South Africa. We considered what happened in Rwanda and the fact that cockroach was used as a word derogatory for a group of people there, and perhaps there would be a situation of hate speech. Ultimately, there are no grounds. He's simply advancing his political agenda, which he is entitled to do. Do we still have time to go on?
Yeah, you still have a minute and a bit.
Okay. In terms of addressing hate speech, and I'm sure Ben discussed this earlier, you would have to look at the objective standard, what the reasonable person is interpreting, or what the message should be. And we have a judgment which says that hate speech should be, or at least speech should be, rather, what I'm trying to say basically is that previously the legislation, the Equality Act, had the word hurtful in it for hate speech, but that's since been taken away, deemed unconstitutional. Because it is overbroad, it would be overly infringing on his rights to sort of express his opinion, particularly his political opinion in this instance. So we've given it a 0 because we cannot pick up any kind of hate speech in this particular passage. Is it painful to hear? Perhaps, but yeah.
Okay. So that's a 0 from you guys.
0.
Okay, cool. So we've got 0 from the media moguls, and I found the clock. So you guys are lucky. I'm going to be starting the clock now. What was your rate, Kat?
All right, so our rating for this scenario is a 4 out of 10. And we'll tell you why. In the South African context, there is a political reference which we can look at when the PA's Kenny Kunene called the EFF's Julius Malema a cockroach, and it ended up at the Equality Court, and there was a legal battle there. And so we still rated it as a 4 because in terms of the historical context in South Africa, words like cockroaches and other derogatory terms have been used against in a racial setting when white person would call a black person, for example, a cockroach. But the reason why we rated it at a 4, because there's even more derogatory terms such as baboon, monkey, and these have a more physical characteristic description, whereas cockroach almost has a vermin description to it. And so it doesn't hold a 10 in the sense that it's a full hate speech, but there's a level of derogatory in it that has been used. And DJ?
Yeah, so there's a standard that I would say would be very applicable to, I mean, it's like what Neo and them say about it being hateful or harmful. It would be classified as saying hateful because the connotations that attach to the word cockroach is pest, it's to eradicate them. These were terms that were used during apartheid to refer to black people, especially also in a political context. So the use of the word can still be hateful in itself, but it maybe doesn't meet a higher standard, which we've seen Vicky Momberg's cases, or those cases arrive to when there's a higher descriptive value that's then attached to those specific words.
All right, yeah, thank you so much for that. Over to you, Ben. We have 0 and we have 4.
Okay. Yes, so as the cross-examiners have mentioned, this was a real case. Kenny Kunene went on a television interview and described Julius Malema several times as a cockroach, as well as a little frog, whatever that means. And Julius Malema took him to court for hate speech. I don't agree with the Equality Court on first instance and appeal, which found that it was hate speech. So the appeal panel of 3 judges, led by Stuart Wilson, found that it was hate speech on the basis of Julius Malema's political affiliation. So remember, you have to have the 3 elements. And if we work backwards, promote and propagate hatred, by all means, this is promoting and propagating hatred against Julius Malema. Harmful may very well be so, encouraging people to shun and degrade him. But is it based on prohibited grounds? Is it degrading him as a black man, as a Pedi man, as a believer, a Christian, for example? Now, Judge Wilson knew that he needed to find a prohibited ground, and so he found it in political affiliation. He said, well, he's discriminating or propagating hatred against Julius Malema as an EFF member. Now, for that to hold, you would have to interpret the speech in context and agree with the judge that simply by virtue of using such a violent word like cockroach, he must be referring to all EFF members. I just don't see the logical link there between having chosen that particular type of creature, and the judge refers to the Rwandan genocide and says, you know, using a word like that, you know, it's so hateful. But words have been used all over the world to justify genocides. Even in Rwanda, the word snake was used as well. It was a very popular term used alongside cockroach. But people call each other snakes all the time. I call my opponents snakes. That's, if it's hateful, it's hating them as an individual based on their personal conduct or characteristics or idiosyncrasies, not because she's a woman, because he is gay, because she's a Muslim, whatever the case may be. It's a personal attack. And Julius Malema's own judgment in his favor in the Supreme Court of Appeal in the Kill the Boer case works against him, because this is also a very political context. Yeah. So people would understand that this is political speech, it's between political rivals, and the Supreme Court of Appeal there said you need to give a lot of latitude to political speech. So for one politician to sue another for calling him a cockroach or and a little frog, that aspect wasn't upheld by the court. I think it's a personal attack. By all means, sue for defamation. I think you would fail. This is different from other defamation cases where different language was used. But the fact that there is a history, and I accept the proposition that there is a history of black people being called cockroaches in South Africa, but that's not, he's not being demeaned as a black person. Kenny Kunene is not engaging in racism against Julius Malema. It's purely a personal attack. So for that reason, I'd agree with the media moguls and pitch it at a 0 out of 10, but both teams have, I think, reasoned very well. So I would give media moguls 5 points and the cross-examiners 3 points.
All right. Don't worry, Neria, it's still early days. All right, scenario number 2. Let's go. It says, LGBTQ is not welcome at La Paradiso. Save our children. This was a sign erected by the owner of a hairdressing salon. It was also accompanied by a series of messages on a WhatsApp group with content like LGBTQ is a blatant attack on Islam. Force is the only option. If only I had a powerful group to crush these sodomists. Become that Rukn Shadid and crush these evil vermin from within. The owner argues he's adhering to his religious beliefs. Let's rate the hate. Let's start with the cross-examiners this time. Neria, you're going to take it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I'm taking this. We rated it 9. So basically we are saying this is hate speech of some sort. We start first with already this LGBTQ is not welcome. Save our children. That's already discrimination. One could argue that when you look at this, they are saying they are adhering to their religious beliefs. As much as the Constitution does give you the right to religious beliefs and your own opinions, your limitation comes as soon as you incite the violence. So therefore, we are already seeing here when they say we want to crush these sodomists, already it tells us that there is some form of promotion of violence. And also, when we look at hate speech, would the reasonable person who is seeing this on the door or wherever, would the reasonable person think this is hate? And we believe that the answer is yes. A reasonable person would view this as hate more than anything. And you must remember the LGBTQI+ community, it's already a protected group. So when you attack a group like that, you need to be careful. You must remember where your limitations come when it comes to that. Let me not finish your time.
Oh, yeah, and then it's the prohibited ground. So Section 9 obviously gives equality to certain individuals, them including the LGBTQI community, with sexual orientation being their protected ground. So when the speech itself in the statement is first and foremost discriminatory in the fact that it doesn't let anyone of the LGBTQI community come into that establishment or whatever they do, and then it takes it a step further to say that force is the only option. It's saying that they want, even though it's based on a religious ground, and that's why we've sort of made it a 9 instead of the 10, is that they want to incite some kind of violence, and they just ask, there's an element where they say if only they had a powerful group to crush the sodomists, but they're clearly trying to take a step to eradicate these individuals, and that's clearly hate speech.
All right, so your rate was a?
9.
A 9. Okay, let's come to our media moguls. What's your, Arti, are you going to go ahead?
Is it on?
Yeah, I think we can hear
Okay.
you.
We actually rated it a 10. And our
10.
reasons for that is also leaning towards what you said, but mainly because it is a very direct sort of targeted, category of people that they're actually, pushing this hate towards, which is the LGBTQI+ community. And then another reason for that is because we said that it is a very, direct sort of inciting of violence in the terms of crush these sodomists and crush these evil vermin from within. So based on that, we actually felt that, this is the height of hate, if you had to actually describe it that way, because it is, targeting a certain group, and it is actually calling for some kind of violence to be sort of incited against them.
All right.
To add on, and I think it will be repetition at this point because I think they've raised all of the critical points, but it's a protected group in a number of legislations, including the Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Act. So from that perspective, there's really no room for them to operate on the assumption that their religious views can overshadow this. I don't believe there's much more to add. We on the 10.
All right.
Right, very quickly, just to echo what the others have said, in direct violation of equality law, listed group as a call to violence, evil vermin from within. He talks about his religious beliefs, but he doesn't respect other people's religious beliefs, which I believe under our Constitution we respect all religions. That's it. Have the next 20 seconds. It's on me.
Okay, I did have one random thought, and it wouldn't be applicable because the sign is outside, but perhaps there would be some kind of argument that this is his private establishment, therefore he could display whatever. But from one of the, I've forgotten the judgment's name now, it might have been the flag case if I recall correctly, but you can't, even displaying such information privately wouldn't pass muster.
And you just made it. Just keep the mic. Before we go to Lawyer Ben, I want to ask our audience this evening, how do you guys rate the last scenario? Anyone? Somebody? Anybody? Nobody? 10. A 10 from William. Anyone else? 10 also? Okay. Okay, so we're leaning towards the media moguls. All right, let's hear from Ben. What are your thoughts?
Ben 10 or Ben 9, which is it? Yeah, this is both very well reasoned, and it's I battle with this one. So the thing about that makes this quite a remarkable statement, which is also based on a real set of facts. We're still waiting for a judgment on it. So you have so many of the common tropes of serious hate speech. You have one, an appeal to morality, saying that this group is immoral. Save our children, for example. So they are a threat to something vulnerable. It's othering, it's demonizing, it's making the out-group something threatening and menacing. So that's one of the elements that's commonly deployed in hate speech to villainize and ostracize groups and to justify violence against them. Not welcome, of course, is the thing that degrades people the most, to say you're not welcome somewhere because of who you are. To say they are evil, again, the appeal to morality, and then to call them vermin, which is to dehumanize them, I think takes it another step further, and then the incitement to violence, to crush, would take it another step further, to incitement to violence. Now, the other aspect is the reach of the speech. So you have, if it was just a sign outside the salon, that would be one thing. It would still be hate speech because passers-by can see it and potential patrons can see it. But it's limited to that audience. Now, it's also been shared in WhatsApp groups, which is a wider dissemination. But it's not as wide as going on TikTok, going on national television, writing in a national newspaper, the Sunday Sun, which was the case in Kwelane. So the distribution could be wider, which would make it a bit worse and would aggravate the situation. So for that reason, I'm inclined towards a 9. So this one would go to the cross-examiners, who would get 5 points, and the cockroaches would get 4 points.
Not cockroaches.
Sorry, I've God, I'm in huge trouble now. Shouldn't read from my script here.
So how much for the media moguls?
That's 4 for the media moguls. I feel like I have to give them more now because I called them cockroaches. Okay, and I have to ask the cross-examiners, why are you so cross? Okay, yeah.
All right. All right, we're on to our last scenario, and yeah. Can you feel the pressure? It's getting worse and worse in this room, okay? Let's go to scenario number 3. It says, Operation Magma, make Mzansi great again. Issues a post on social media. Enough is enough. Time for us to show these foreigners who South Africa belongs to. Join us on Monday, on the 20th of October, Walter Sisulu Square, for 10 o'clock as we go house to house and remove the plague that is raping our women and bringing crime. For those who don't have houses yet, this is your chance to move into a freshly evacuated place. Magma, putting South Africa first. All right, before I come to our teams, I want to ask the audience first. How would you rate that? Out of 10. Is it a tough one? A difficult one? It's giving more of a crime? What would the crime be? Oh, okay, so leading way to a crime. So eviction, okay, I see what you mean. So I read rapists, or I read women being raped, that the plague, so I read they called the plague, number one, and they're accused of raping women and bringing crime. Do I have a hand? No, okay. I'll take one more. 7. Cool. All right, we've got a 7 from the audience. Let's start with the Let's start with the media moguls. Go ahead.
So this one was a little bit tricky for us as well. Initially, we had leaned towards a 9, but perhaps we're thinking an 8. Reason being that there's a judgment. I believe it's the Xolani judgment, but I stand to be corrected. Basically, it does not have to have a particularly derogatory word for it to constitute hate speech. The interpretation of it as not harmful rather, but yes, harmful or incitement to violence, propaganda to hate, that should be sufficient to render it hate speech. Initially, we know that nationality is not a listed ground for hate speech, I think, in the Equality Act. However, it is now a listed ground in the Hate Crimes Act. So under the Hate Crimes Act, it would technically constitute hate speech. But we do have the challenge that in this set of facts, there's no particular, aside from identifying them as foreigners, there's no particular phrasing.
All right, so it is against a community, being foreigners. There's a call to violence, but not direct. We don't know what they're going to do. They're one step short of what they're going to do. So that's why it hit an 8. It's against the Equality Act. It's like my colleague was saying as well, ethnicity is a ground. It's come out now. It's changed recently. So yeah, an 8.
And another thing that we actually discussed was that while there is no sort of direct slur, there is an impression that's being created around foreigners through this statement, and that could also just sort of, kind of incite hate, but not as dramatically as the previous statement.
All right.
And then a final factor to consider is that this call to violence has particular details, almost to the point where someone can actually follow this and has the outcome of violence, as opposed to that previous scenario where it was sort of a general, I wish I had these people to go and do said violence.
Thank you for that. And let's go on my right, our cross-examiners.
So we've rated this as 7. We like to play on the scale. A lot of the things have been touched on already. So foreigners and their nationalities, like he says, it can be classified technically as hate speech, but we also have to look at how xenophobia has been dealt with in the country quite widely. We've had the PA make similar kinds of statements. Action SA, Herman Mashaba and them have made similar kinds of statements. So it falls into somewhat of a gray area. It touches on what Ben was saying previously, where there's a far greater reach because of the publication that this had on social media as compared to it being on WhatsApp groups. It's like what Neo says, that there's an element to it where it's organized, it's fixed. This is a call to action that is centered around nationalism. It's individuals of South Africa protecting their interests. It has quite harmful stereotypes attached to it in that it's referring to these individuals as being a plague, which has its own connotations to the words, which means that they could possibly bring you death, possibly bring you harm. They're raping your woman, they are killing your children, or they're bringing crime. All of these kinds of connotations incite a level of hatred towards these individuals that necessarily isn't founded on any strong basis. So that appeal to morality and that stereotype is quite harmful and quite hateful, and it can call people to now bring on violence against them without a probable justifiable basis. We do agree that there is, apart from those aggravating factors, that the mitigating factors is that it is largely unclear. Like Operation Tutula right now is running around and evicting people, but we're not necessarily seeing extensive harm being perpetrated against these individuals. They're being evicted out of their houses, they're being told to move their shops from the CBD, but there's not necessarily an act of violence taking place. But the incitement of violence is still there and it still exists. We just don't think it exists on that scale.
All right. And you have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Well done, guys. Thank you so much for your guys' contributions. Ben, over to you.
Thank you. Well, thanks to both teams throughout the questions for very carefully thought out analysis of what makes up the aggravating and mitigating factors in hate speech. It's a very difficult thing to quantify scientifically. And you're guided really by the social environment that you find yourself in and what's happened in the past and what we fear might happen in the future. On this particular one, although it's not a listed ground, the Act doesn't say that the catch-all for any other ground where there's systemic marginalization or discrimination, that it's going to be any less because it's not a listed ground. So the fact that it does clearly, the language is based on a prohibited ground, because I'd say here nationality in the context of xenophobic hatred and violence over many years qualifies it. I mean, migrants are a marginalized group. I think we can accept that. And from at least 2008 and sporadically onwards, a particularly brutalized group. So I think that based on prohibited ground, that element is satisfied. It is harmful in the sense that it ostracizes the out-group. It promotes it emboldens members of the in-group to discriminate against them. And then the promotion and propagation of hatred, it's in the language itself, that calling them a plague, saying that they're raping our women and bringing crime, as the cross-examiners mentioned, that these are particularly harmful stereotypes and appeals to morality. Then there's the sense of belonging again, that who South Africa belongs to. The worst, I think, is the remove the plague and the fact that it names a date, a time, and a place. That makes this for me even worse than scenario 2, because there's a specific call to action. In the other instances, looking at Penny Sparrow, even Kill the Boer and various others, there's no place or time where people are going to gather to conduct themselves in a discriminatory or even violent manner. But where you nominate a time and a date and a place, there you enhance the risk of people actually being physically harmed. All hate speech is going to cause some kind of emotional and social harm, but physical harm is an abstract thing, and it's not required that there be a causal link with physical harm. But if you actually create the conditions for physical harm to ensue in a concrete sense like this, then I think that puts it at the furthest end of the spectrum. So for me, scenario 3 is a 10 out of 10 because of the specific call to gather, and it's clearly remove the plague is coded language for violence. So that means for me, because that's a 10 out of 10, I would give the media moguls a 5 and the cross-examiners a 4, which means that with 14 points to 12, the media moguls have carried the day.
Woo! Well done! How do you feel? How do you feel about your win?
Well, if you guys would like to hire us, our billable hours are not bad. It's 0800 Media Mogul. You know the rest, right? Not Cockroach.
All right, thank you so much, guys. I just want to open up for any final thoughts. If you have any views that you want to express as we wrap up. Was that helpful? Did it help you make sense of what's hateful, what's hate speech? Yes, no, maybe, sometimes? Okay, all right. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have been an awesome audience. I want to thank our lawyer, Mr. Ben. Let's give it up for him. And the amazing, the fantastic, the lovely, the wonderful cross-examiners! And our winners for the evening, I need you guys to stand, okay, and bow. Our winners for the evening, the ones and only Media Moguls! All right, that does bring us to the end of this segment, coming to you live from the, what is it called?
People's Theatre.
The People's Theatre. Thank you so much. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Have a lovely night, and I'm going to invite William to come forward. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Wow, I love these things. They're so cool. And thank you to the brilliant Ben. I think he deserves another round of applause.
Yep.
You know,
And the outstanding Kgothatso.
when a legal, I'll get to her. When a legal mind is so good that it makes the most complex things sound simple, then you know that's really incredible. So thank you for that. And then our game show host, I thought, was outstanding this evening, so she deserves a round of applause.
I'll bow. Thank you.
And then a massive thanks to our teams. I thought your arguments were particularly well reasoned this evening. Having looked at these things for several years now, this was really brilliant. Thank you very much, all of you, and well done.
Yeah.
You would have guessed that all of these scenarios are based on real things. The one, we changed the name slightly, just to have a bit of fun. If you remember Kenny Kunene, he was the sushi guy, which is why his name was changed to Mr. S. Yushi. Right? You got that joke? Okay. And then the title of the scenario,
Yeah.
for the first one was around cockroaches.
Yeah.
And that's because the collective noun for a group of cockroaches, because that was about a group versus an individual, the collective noun for a group of cockroaches is?
Well, I don't know,
An intrusion.
An
An intrusion
Yeah.
of cockroaches. So there you go. Here's our non-intrusion of cockroaches. And then the third scenario was based on 2 complaints that we got through Real 411. And what happened there was we saw those, and it literally put a poster on social media inviting people and saying, you're going to get a free house if you come, because we're going to kick these people out. And it was that language and a bit more in a few other posts. And what we did was we alerted the South African Human Rights Commission. They alerted the police. They went and visited the person who posted these things and said, hey, we're watching you. And fortunately, they also went, more importantly, to the community, and they stopped people from being kicked out of their houses. So at least it was a horrible thing with a mildly happy ending. So, but again, based on a very real scenario. So these things show you just how hard they are to assess. Anyway, we've got dinner in a moment. We're going to give you thank you goodie bags to the winning team first so that they feel special, because of course they are. And then we've got dinner, and it's going to be just outside the way you walked in, so it's going to be closer to your car as you leave. You're going to go into the building and up the first flight of stairs. There's a lovely meal there. Please stay and eat and take takeaways, because I suspect we've got too much food. And then we hope to see all of you back tomorrow, where we've got, again, some other lovely, fabulous legal issues at stake. In the morning, we've got a Constitutional Court Justice, Majid, who's going to come and talk to us about online harms and the law. Then after that, we're going to see, we've got another brilliant panel with Michael Power and Dario Milo, looking at slap suits and weaponization of our legal system. Then we go to young people and what they think about all of these issues, some research that's been done with young people on media information literacy, how it actually empowers them. And then really, and also really cool, we've got a launch of our discussion document on AI and children. And then in the evening, we've got an evening event that's so sexy you're going to want to take it out to dinner. Instead, we suggest that you just come here. And that is going to be the Journalism Slam. So we hope to see you, your friends, your cousins, your neighbors, your lovers, whoever you like to bring them all here to the Journalism Slam tomorrow. It's a fantastic format event where you're going to get to hear really cool stories from some of our country's top journalists, including the likes of Peter Louis Meyberg and Conita Hunter, and there's a whole lot of really cool journalists there and storytellers who are going to be amazing. So that's the end of day one of the Media Freedom Festival. Thank you everyone for being with us this evening. Thank you again, all of you, for giving us your time. You really are brilliant, amazing, lovely people. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Should I take this?